talk about the defense in general. What do you expect out of it this season?
We're not very big, but we can run, and that's the way I've really built defenses. When in Midwestern, really, we're just now getting into that phase where we're built. I know it's been a lot of years that I've been here, but you have your say on what type of kids you bring in, and they have to match your system. And before, we were always recruited to a 4-3 system. We never had that hybrid outside backer, which is the rover. Probably the best position for us on the field with Dan Jackson and Desmond Jackson. Desmond started at University of Oklahoma. Dan was at Louisiana Monroe and was a Division I player. They both can run. Very physical, probably the best two athletes. Both of them vertical jump over 40 inches. And you'll see them both on the field because we'll play them both on the field at the same time as two outside backers. But we haven't had that where they can cover man. They're great on the blitz and they're great in zone coverage. And both of them are really smart. They add a different element to us. Got two good corners, not very big guys, but they can cover. And which excites you. I'm worried about free safety right now. Blair Johnson's back there. Blair's really never played. Even though he's been around for a long time, he really has never been forced to play in that situation. And we got some guys, some transfers in there that I'm waiting to mentally pick up our system and know what we're doing. We're very, very solid at the weak side safety with Terrence Henry. Behind him, we got another freshman. If you look behind all these guys I mentioned, every one of those guys are freshmen. So you gotta see how those come along. Our linebacking core is going to be good. Get Matt Nicky back was the lick because he makes us run and he gets us lined up and does those things that made him an all-conference player and led the team in tackles in 2009. Get Matt back is a tremendous element. And then Marquise Watley was a kid that we got eligible late last year in a transfer from Central Arkansas that he's been the biggest. It hadn't been a surprise to us because we knew how talented he would be, but his attitude, his demeanor, his emotions that he's brought to us have really been good, and we're excited about that back core of 7 guys.
Go up front and talk about the trenches.
Brian Ford is a kid that got hurt in preseason last year. He was going to be our starter. That was a highly recruited kid out of Blinn. Brian can really play, and he's a better man than he is anything, and that's what makes Brian so special, and he's a good leader for us. On the opposite side, we'll have Chase Bowers. Chase is a big, athletic, hasn't played a lot of football, got hurt in junior college, but was a rivals player coming out of high school and signed at Florida Atlantic, and he's a 6'5", 290-pound kid that is quick off the football, and we expect big things out of him. It's just a discipline factor, not of knowing what to do, but he's what they look like. His quickness and speed, it's just youthful. It's just never played. Behind him, we've had a true freshman come in and beat all of them out, and a kid named Tyrone Melton. And again, he's not a real big guy. He's 255 pounds. He's 5'11", but he bench presses 425 pounds and squats 600. So he's a powerful kid. And he's quick off the ball, and he plays a great pad level, and that's what made him so. Our other guys are kind of getting knocked off the ball a little bit. Tyrone's always going forward, and he's always working. And then it's going to be a battle with Juan Gonzalez, who's a freshman. He's come on too. We got some seniors over there just kind of looking around like, uh-oh, these young cats have kind of de-seeded them. And we'll see. Jason Billings will be in the fight. Really, there's some guy. Jason can do some good things for us. Mike Washington is a kid that played a bunch of football for us last year, and they're in a battle just to make the bus right now. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about what really is junior, freshman, and the seniors. So we're going to kind of see how that battle shakes out and who will get in the mix. And then defensive end, we got 2 that's kind of emerged there. Rufus Johnson, and Rufus is a big 6'5", 255-pound kid that played at Kilgore, and then the Logan Johnson's on the other side, and Logan is playing the way I envisioned him to play a year ago. That led him, he led junior college in sacks as a junior, was 17, and then he didn't perform up to his potential last year. Really was an underachiever, and Logan has put it in the off season. Behind him, there's we got a guy named Truxton Fox that is just an old hardcore football player that just plays the game the way it's supposed to. And I've been really excited about him. And Levi Kirkland and Pat Bettyall there's a lot of guys out there that can play, and we'll play by numbers at the defensive line and roll those guys in and keep them fresh, especially at the end spot.
Talk about just the makeup in general of the chemistry this team has so far this season and where you'd like it to go.
Which has worried me, coming into the year. I felt like, you preach it. All I preach to them is family, family, family. All I try to do is do team bonding. Go and do, community service together. Do all the things that we need to do that bonds us together. Sometimes I think they miss the point, but I've never quit doing it. And that's really kind of where we're at right now. I don't know how close they are. I know that they enjoy each other a lot more now. The question is, how much are they going to enjoy each other when the depth chart is settled? How much more are they going to enjoy each other when you're not the stat guy and we're asking you to be the best fourth-team guy in the country but prepared to be number one? That's the whole battle, and that's yet to be seen. Are they close? Yes. Are they together? Yes. Have they worked all summer? 80 of them? Yes. Are they always together? You see them at restaurants together and not cliquey. You see different kids together. Right now, I really, really like where they're at, but I'm worried about where they're going to be. When that selfish ambition and that little old man can get on your shoulder and talk to you about, this is happening, in the locker room, lawyers start to come in. And the question is, how much leadership at that point will we have to be able to weed those guys out of the locker room? That's what scares me. That's the challenge. And I won't know until probably game 2 or 3, where we're at on that end.
Talk about the leadership. Only 8 seniors, like you say. Is it leaders having to step up from elsewhere? There's 8 seniors, but there's guys have been with, those guys have been with us for a long time. Arthur Buckingham is a junior, and Matt Nickey's a junior, and Brian Ford, and you look at that junior class. But our seniors are doing a nice job, with Nick's doing a good job there, and a couple of the offensive linemen are doing a good job. But those seniors are really the only guy that has really solidified a position that you're not going to get this position as a senior is Terrence Henry. The rest of those guys, they're more worried about that young cat beating them out, and they're battling in practice right now. It's just the tempo in which they play. And that's, I told him, a leader, is he a guy that's always running his mouth, or is he a guy that's always working? I said, I'm not really concerned with them being leaders, because leaders will develop. I'm more concerned about you being a great teammate, helping the guy that's behind you, or helping the guy that's in front of you, communicating with those guys. And that's, and I see them becoming good teammates. I don't see, I really don't necessarily get caught up in whether they're seniors, whether they're good people. A year ago, our seniors didn't do a really good job of leading, and it fell on the shoulders of the kids we're talking about right now, and they were forced in a situation that they had to lead. When you look at the 2011 schedule, you open up at home versus highly ranked, nationally ranked Abilene Christian. Then you hit the road for 3 or 4 weeks. Talk about the schedule and what you see coming up here.
It's a challenge. I just try to teach them to believe. Looking at, open up with Abilene Christian, not only are we opening up with nationally ranked, we're opening up an opponent that gave us the worst loss in school history, the worst loss I've ever been associated with in my life. And that drives us. But does it drive us with fear, or does it drive us with belief? And that's the fine line. When you open up, I don't necessarily say you got to win that game, but you got to play and come out believing that you got a chance to be a good football team. Of course, I believe we're going to win every football game, and I teach that to my players, and I preach that, no matter what happens. And some people question that, but that's okay too, because they're not trying to convince 18 to 24-year-old kids to do something they don't think they can do. You can't do it by saying, hey, I hope we hold on today, or I hope we go in. And I'm very confident. I'm very positive with those kids. Now, I coach them hard. Some people blush the way I coach them in practice, but I coach them to put them in an adverse situation. So, just looking at that schedule along the haul, we're believing. And we're not, I don't even know who's game 2 or even looked at those guys. Our focus right now is on Abilene Christian. We work through the spring for them. We work for them now, but there are some long trips in there. And West Alabama's a nationally ranked team too. then you got Division I, and they're out of 1AA. They're Division I now, and that transition year with Texas State and Dennis Franchione. And then having to go to Blackwater Draw, what I think is one of the hardest places to play in the conference. And I've been in battles out there that thing come down to crunch time, and they play and they defend their home turf like nobody else. And so you got a lot of time. Then come back West Texas and Midwestern and Commerce. I mean, it doesn't get any easier. I mean, somebody said you got a tough first part of the schedule, and I said no, we got a tough schedule all the way to the end in the Lone Star Conference. You got to be ready to battle. And I look at last year. We had 8 times we had a chance to win the game in the fourth quarter. That we were either down a score or up a score in the fourth quarter, and we won 3 of them. And that's that can't happen. 2 games we were at. 3 games we were out of it. We weren't in the game in the fourth quarter against Abilene, of course, and we weren't in the game against West Texas. And the last game, which was a complete fiasco for us, we weren't in the game. But every other game, we were in it, either down a score or up a score in the fourth quarter. And that's where we've got to be able to win the football game. And you look at that schedule, I just tell them, hey, get the game in the fourth quarter, and let's find a way to win it. Because I think we're probably going to be better conditioned than everybody else. Just to make it through our practices, you have to be in better condition.
Talk about, you mentioned defending the home turf. Talk about playing here at Memorial Stadium.
It's an unbelievable atmosphere, and our kids love playing here. And that's where we struggled with a year ago. We came in and we played the game that we had a chance to win against Northeastern, and we blew it in the last end with a kickoff return. We had them. All we had to do was stop when we were playing, and it didn't happen. But then we have to go on the road with a young football team for 3 weeks where you're the underdog and there's nobody there and you're battling uphill, and we just could never get that thing. And, of course, when the injuries hit us, that's what you worry about now. Defending the home turf at Memorial Stadium. It'll be an unbelievable atmosphere. Open up with Abilene Christian. Those kids believe in playing, at home. And then they don't come back, for a month. That's where and they want it. You look back, we were as low as we could be, and we came back and won our second game in Memorial Stadium. And, and really was in every game. The last one we weren't, we should have beat Kingsville at home. We did beat Incarnate Word. We had a chance to do some great things at home, and they enjoy it. I enjoy it. Just seeing the Plowboys and the Pooh and the Star and the cheerleaders and the band that does a wonderful job, and just that home field advantage and they're good football fans. They understand what's going on. They don't cheer when they're not supposed to, and you don't ever hear them boo you even when things are going tough. They are into the game. They're smart fans, and they understand what's happening. And our kids, that's why we put Tarleton on one jersey and Texans on the other, because that's who we're going to represent, and that's who I'm selling to represent. But Memorial Stadium and we're proud of that little place out there too.
What people know about Tarleton State football in 2011?
That we will play with great passion, great emotion, and it's yet to see how together we're going to play. I believe right now it's going to be a great, it'll be good for us. What you can look for is, I'm hoping that the confidence will rub off in them, that they're confident but not arrogant, and there's a distinct difference in that. And yet, and not try to cover up their fears. We all have fears, but the thing I see out of our kids right now is we're going to play for 4 quarters. And we're going to get that game in the fourth quarter. We did it a year ago when we weren't very good and we were young. Take 8 games in the fourth quarter, anything could have happened. And but they'll play hard. They'll get it in the fourth quarter, and let's find a way to win. It's a belief, and that's all we talk about right now. Believe, and don't hope and don't wish. Believe it's going to happen to you, and trying to get that thing. But we're going to play hard. And the things that I was pleased with them, we're not a heavy penalized team. Sometimes you think that we are. You see that we were the least penalized team in the Lone Star Conference South last year. Of course, now it's going to be in the Lone Star Conference. We'll play smart too, because they pay the ultimate price for not playing smart. And I discipline those kids, but they'll play smart, they'll play clean, and they'll play hard to the echo of the whistle. So if we can do that, we'll have a chance to win every Saturday.